So are you taking the upcoming management case study exam and not knowing what to do, not knowing what topics to study because the syllabus is so vast, what case study topics come up in the exam? Then you're in the right place because this video has been created to discuss the management case study exam top issues that we have gathered after years of experience, after speaking to students, and after seeing CIMA template exams. We've come down and narrowed down to these 10, 11 top exam topics which we feel often come up in the exam, and we are sure that this video is going to be helpful for students studying the management case study exam. So my name is Devansh. You would have already been on the channel and been introduced to me. I am the lead tutor at Fintutors, and we are CIMA accredited and registered tuition providers. So all the information that we give you is well backed by experience, is well backed by expertise. So you can rely on it. You can study in the direction that we give, and you would see the results of the same. To further help you with this exam, we have a free management case study exam mini course. This mini course gives you and is completely full with a whole bunch of information that is going to be very valuable for your preparation. We give you how to create your personalized study plan, how to maximize your study in a month and a half, what should we focus upon. We give you the blueprint explanations, we give you a sample mock, we give you the industry analysis, the pre-scene analysis part 1. All of this is part of our free mini course. I'll leave the link for the mini course in the description below. Check it out. It's very useful. It will enrich your studying and will give you a very, very directed approach towards this management case study exam. So you might be wondering, what are these topics and how do we accumulate them? First and foremost, we focus on the pre-scene. Students studying with us or students that have studied with us, or if you just visit our YouTube channel, you would see that the pre-scene analysis that we do is very, very detailed. We go into the depth, we go into, we just try to pick the underlying theme that the pre-scene suggests. When we read the pre-scene, we try to identify issues with the pre-scene, problems with the company, and then we match them with specific topics that CIMA asks and try to create a list that gives students focused study on topics that often come up in the exam while they write mock questions with us. So just by going through the E2, P2 and F2 material, it's not going to be a positive experience in the exam. Just by going through the pre-scene, it's not going to be a positive experience in the exam. The actual value is added when both of these combine, which means students write mock questions with us. We make our students practice very, very much. We make our students do 25 mock exam questions before their exam date. So you can imagine the level of preparedness that they have, because we have blueprint explanations, which no other tutor does. Our blueprint specific explanations show the syllabus areas that students must study. I'll leave the link to our blueprint explanation video on your screen or in the description below. You'll be able to view it. It's available on YouTube itself. We also do a very detailed pre-scene which comes up to 3 hours or so, and then we do exactly exam style mock writing, and each question that is submitted by the student is marked, checked and corrected by us. So we accumulate these topics with a lot of effort and with a lot of time that's given to the perspective, and obviously because of the experience and expertise of our tutors and myself, we've been able to identify exam favorite topics, and through this video we are going to share the same with you. Let's begin without wasting any time. So we are speaking about important area 1, and these 10 topics, 11 topics that we have identified are not chronologically arranged. So it's not like topic number 1 is the most important topic and topic number 11 is the least important topic. That's not true. We just, while going through the pre-scene, identified certain topics which we felt are important for our students to study, and we listed them down as part of this analysis that we have created. So the first area which we feel are important is the investment appraisal area or the investment appraisal techniques. If you just think of the investment appraisal techniques, they are directly from your P2 syllabus, from your P2 study, and that forms part A of your core areas. So with every important topic that we give you, we'll also identify the important core areas or the blueprint areas or the ICANN areas which CIMA have identified to make your study more centered, to make your study more directive. So investment appraisal techniques, part A of your core areas. So what type of questions come up? You may be thinking investment appraisal technique, it's such a broad perspective. So what type of questions can come up here? Now, investment appraisal technique questions are generally revolving around giving you the calculations, giving you the tables, and then you'll just have to explain. For a very simple example, they can give you an NPV analysis or an IRR analysis. You'll have to tell them which project is better and why you should go ahead with that project. So you'll require your NPV knowledge, your IRR knowledge here. Same way, they can give you project 1 NPV IRR, project 2 NPV IRR. They'll ask you which project should we go with? What does NPV mean? What does IRR mean? Which project should be chosen? They do give you that. And then here you need to showcase your decision making ability. Which project to choose, why to choose it is important. Also, the concept of capital rationing, the time value of money, may be asked to be explained to the board of directors. There is a complete discussion or a scenario given where the time value of money or capital rationing or the prospects of time value are asked. You need to explain it to the board of directors in simple, easy words because probably they don't understand these technical terms. So investment appraisal questions will revolve around analysis, will be about looking at the tables, the numbers, the methods chosen and explained in the question. You just have to pick it up and tell them why one method is better than the other. So this is part of your P2 syllabus straight away in chapters 5 and 6. We must study the different investment appraisal techniques like NPV, IRR, ARR, MIRR, the payback period, the discounted payback period, because they can ask us to look at 2 tables or 3 tables in the question with different investment appraisal techniques. Then you will have to provide a detailed explanation of which method is better and why. So knowing the basics of each method are very important in your own words, along with a couple advantages, couple disadvantages for each method would be a good start, would be a good mind frame to be in for this particular important topic. Important area number 2 now. So number 2, we identified the management of risks as a very key area. It is a topic that often comes up in the exam. So this is part B of your core areas. This is a very important topic that is often tested in this exam. So you may be thinking again, what type of questions come up? So the type of questions come up revolving around, let's say they've asked you to analyze a new investment. Let's say your company has launched a new product, purchased a new company. What type of risks could we face? That is a question that is often asked. So you must keep in mind or use your common business acumen here to read the question and analyze which type of risks can my company face. And if you have studied your P2 chapters for this area, you will know the major risk categories like strategic risk, product risk, reputation risk, for example. These will be in your mind and then you will simply be able to apply the same to the question when this is asked. So one of the most common questions is there's a new investment, new product, and they ask you to identify the risks that we could face. And another way to face this is they can say outline a list of risks we can face, we could face. So again, your knowledge here counts. And then once you have identified the risks, they often ask you on how you can manage those risks. So how can I manage those risks better? How can I deal with those risks better? These are common scenarios in the exam. This is again part of your P2 syllabus, and you must study the risk management framework, which is the TARA model. It's quite important here. And from the risk perspective, the topics of sensitivity analysis, which overlap with investment appraisal, need to be known, and ethical issues as sources of risks also need to be known. So what are the ethical issues that can arise which can create a risk for your company? So risk and management of the same is a exam favorite topic which does come up. So the objective of us pointing out these important topics to you is to showcase to you, yes, that these are the major areas that you must study from your syllabus. These are the type of questions that can be asked, and then we make our student write exactly exam styled mocks with these scenarios. So you can imagine you've already prepared for them from the technical perspective, which means gone through the syllabus areas that we pointed out. Secondly, our students get our detailed pre-scene analysis, so you've gone through that as well. And thirdly, we make you write the mocks. We actually put you in that situation and make you write. So just imagine your level of preparedness, how ready you're going to be, how confident you're going to be if you've done these areas, got them marked, checked and corrected by our professional team, and then you sit the exam, and if any of these topics come up, you'll be able to do very well. That's the entire perspective of this video and this material that we have created. Now to area number 3, which we have identified as very important. This is your consolidation part explained. The explanation of the same is quite often asked. Deals with acquisitions, disposals, and this is part D and E of your core areas. So if you've gone through our blueprint explanation video, I'll leave it in the description above, or just it'll be on your screen somewhere. I'll leave it for you to see. What we have done is we've identified the blueprint areas given by CIMA. According to those blueprint areas, we identified topics which can be important for students to study, like I mentioned above, and I'm showing you the bifurcation as well. So consolidation falls in part D and E of your core areas. So you may be wondering what type of questions come up, because consolidation is very number oriented, right? You may think that consolidation means preparation of the financial statements, which you are not required to do from the case study perspective. So what type of questions come up? The first common type is they ask you the changes that would occur on consolidation. Let's say your company acquires a new company. Consolidated statements need to be prepared. So what will be the changes that take place? How will those statements be prepared? How will you recognize and how will the process go? You need to explain it in your own words. Same way, they can ask the potential impact of consolidating a foreign subsidiary. If you acquired a company in your own country, consolidation is easy. But if you acquire a company which is in a foreign country, the subsidiary accounting then comes into the picture, because over here there will be different foreign exchange currencies, right? So concepts of IAS 21 should be clear here. So impact of consolidating a local subsidiary and a foreign subsidiary, both should be present in your mind. Questions often revolve around the same. Third, the impact on acquisition on the consolidated financial statements. So they can ask you, once we acquire this company, how will our goodwill be affected? So your goodwill calculation, you must know, because you will have to explain it in your own words. You won't have to calculate anything, but you'll have to tell them how is the new goodwill calculated. This is part of your F2 syllabus. Same way, how will post-acquisition profits be dealt with? Something that does often come up. So in your F2 syllabus, the consolidation working notes, in your own words, you should know them. So they can ask you to provide an explanation on any of them, and it's often asked as well in the exam. Fourth, explanations relating to fair value adjustments that occur on consolidation. So when you are acquiring a new company, there can be certain fair value adjustments that you need to make on consolidation. So how do you account for the same? How do you note the same? That is often asked in the exam. So these are possible exam scenarios that often come up, and this is directly part of your F2 syllabus. You must study the consolidation basics and the adjustments or workings which you must know in your own simple words. We are not asking you to learn everything, replicate everything. If you go through our notes or if you go through our just revision videos that we have created, we have tried to make this very easy and straightforward for our students in the terms of remembering important areas and not remembering everything. The key here is to remember that you must know the topics in your own words. So if somebody asks you, I bought a new company, how will goodwill be affected? You should be able to explain that in your own simple words. That's the key here. That's the areas that we must actually try to strengthen our skills upon, and that's why we make our students write, because writing is the only way to success. That's what we believe for all the case study exams. Important area or topic number 4 which we have highlighted is managing and understanding costs. So the entire costing perspective is discussed here. This is part C of your core areas. So what type of questions come up from this segment? Now over here, all your costing related questions will be discussed. Before I go on to costing, let me speak about budgeting as well, because it's overlapping, right? So which budgeting system would you recommend for your business? This is often asked. Specifically, the principles of activity-based budgeting can come up. So your different budgeting systems, which are explained in P2, you must know them in your own words. So incremental budgeting, your zero-based budgeting, activity-based budgeting, these are topics that you must know in your own words, their characteristics, and 2 advantages, 2 disadvantages of each is something that we recommend all our students to know from the budgeting perspective, because it often comes up. Coming to costing now, the analysis of a given costing sheet and suggesting why that method is good for my business. Specifically, again, activity-based costing can be spoken about here. So they'll give you a costing sheet, the entire cost sheet will be created, given to you in one method, let's say absorption costing or standard costing, and then the same costing sheet for the same product is created in a different way for activity-based costing. That entire cost sheet will be given. You'll have to explain, or you can be asked to explain why the profit is different, which method is better, why this method is better, why this method has limitations. So your analysis should be clear, and for that you'll have to know the basics of each costing system. They can give us a question asking us to explain the concept of target costing as well. They often say that we are introducing a new product and now looking at target costing as one of the methods to follow. Why do you think it's a good method? Why do you think there are limitations to this method? So target costing is another topic which often comes up. Fourthly, they will give us, the entire costing schedule, like I said, with the relevant numbers, cost pools, cost drivers. We then have to break the information down and explain why the ABC method could be useful for my business rather. So what is ABC? How is it useful? The concept of life cycle costing is also tested often. They'll say we are introducing a new product, we're thinking about life cycle costing. How does it differ from my current costing method? So to know your current costing method, you'll have to know your pre-scene well. That is why we do a very detailed pre-scene analysis first. And then life cycle costing information you derive from your P2 syllabus. So this entire costing perspective is part of your P2 syllabus. We must study the different costing systems as mentioned above, and the advantages and disadvantages of each need to be clearly known in your own words. I've never asked any student to mug up anything, learn anything from exactly the textbook. No, our notes also make it easier for students to remember important, easy core areas. That is why we say whenever you do anything, do it in your own words so you can recall it when the time comes. Another important topic we highlighted was the IAS and the IFRSs that we must know. These are part of your core area E, so obviously questions on this will come up in the exam. So what type of questions come up here? First and foremost, dealing with earnings per share. So sometimes you have a quoted company, sometimes in your pre-scene they would have given you a quoted company, or it's an unquoted company as well, and then an exam scenario comes up where they tell you that the company is getting listed. Hence, the perspective of earnings per share comes into the picture. So you will be given all the details and numbers which you must use to identify which costs can be capitalized and which not, along with reasons. This also brings in the topic of your consolidated statement of changes in equity. So simply for earnings per share, you should know your IAS 33 requirements. You must know the concept of consolidated statement of changes in equity. Secondly, there are questions revolving around the provisions, contingent assets, contingent liabilities. This is your IAS 37. So they often ask you, they'll give you the details and ask you, should we recognize this as a provision or as a contingent liability? So you must know what the measurement categories are, which are laid out in your F2 syllabus. This is a very, very technical area. For the other parts, you may be able to create an answer in your own words. Like if I ask you costing, like if I ask you budgeting, you remember the skeleton from the notes, but then you explain in your own words. But for F2 related topics, these are technicalities. You cannot give a measurement category incorrectly. So you must clearly know to recognize a provision what categories must be fulfilled. You cannot make it up. So you must revise these areas very well and very clearly. Thirdly, they often ask intangible asset recognition and measurement. This have become one of the most common areas that are asked up in the exam. So they can give you a table with the details and they'll tell you which areas we should capitalize, which areas you should treat as just an expense in your profit or loss. So your intangible asset knowledge has to be clear here. And for this specific IAS and IFRS that you must study is IAS 33, EPS, IAS 37, the IAS 38 on intangible assets, and IAS 24 on related parties. These are just a few ones that we feel are important for your case study. These are not the only ones that can be tested, but these are favorite exam topics that do often come up. And to make your study more relatable, directed, we have pointed them out. We have put them in front of you to just showcase you the type of questions that can come up and what you must be prepared for. But at the end of the day, writing skill is most important. You can study all the topics in the world, you can remember the entire textbook, but to actually replicate it when an exam scenario comes up, writing mocks are the only thing that can prepare you for the same. So once we have highlighted important topics, we ask students to go through them, study them, go through the pre-scene and then actually practice writing on certain important topics. And we do 25 exam questions for our full course, which is more than enough practice to get you prepared and confident for the exam. Next thing they often asked is the digital technology in our ecosystem. So understanding my business model and suggesting digital upgrades. Now, when we study for the management case study exam, in our pre-scene analysis, we understand how and what digital technology or digital aspects can be brought about for my business, can better my business. So those are areas which you must keep in your mind, and then you can suggest digital upgrades where required with your E2 knowledge syllabus from chapters 1 and 3 specifically. How can we better the experience of our customers using digital systems? How do we make it better for customers? So digital ecosystems, this is part of your E2 syllabus. So these areas must be kept in mind for a student who is taking the management case study exam. And big data and that concept is part of your P2 syllabus. So from the digital aspect, you're pretty much remembering rather how big data can be useful, the technology my company currently uses and it can use going forward. Thirdly, the experience of the customers, how can that be made better? And think about the entire digital ecosystem of your company. How can you make it better? How can you go one step forward and make it integrative so the entire picture for the customer changes and the experience for the customer is enhanced? For a digital company, this is something that we must specifically keep in mind, obviously from the knowledge perspective, but from the exam perspective as well. It's part of your core area, so exam questions will come up on the same. Another favorite exam area which is tested, topic number 7, is conflict resolution and business management. So how can you manage the business in a way where conflict, if of any kind, arises in your business, how can you resolve the same? How can you manage the same? This is part of your core area B. So how and what type of questions come up? How do they ask this? So they can create a scenario where some employees are being fired. That particular business area closes down or we don't need those employees. They've been relieved of their duties. How do you manage this redundancy process? How do you maintain the confidence of your current existing employees? Over here, you can use your simple business acumen to give answers, because at work as well, some of your employees are getting relieved of their duties. They're not asked to come in from the next month. Your motivation is your confidence is going to be affected. So what do you want your company to do to make you feel supported? Think about that. Not everywhere you will require E2, P2 and F2 specific knowledge. You may have to use your simple business acumen for answering as well. This is one of those situations. For F2 related topics, you need that technical knowledge. For P2 related topics, most of the time you need the technical knowledge. For E2 related topics, if you have the technical knowledge, well and good. But if at that point you cannot remember specifically that technical knowledge, you can use your simple business acumen to provide an answer. So how do you manage the redundancy process? How do you maintain confidence in your employees? Ask yourself that question and see what answer you can give. They give a situation where conflict is between manager and employees. How can you deal with the same? Vertical conflict, how do you deal with it? Thirdly, they can ask you that I want to now reward my staff. I want to keep them motivated. How can I, what are the ways? Suggest the steps forward. Next, they ask performance appraisal. It's another favorite exam topic that comes up. So how do you deal with the redundancy process, confidence, vertical conflict, horizontal conflict, performance appraisal? These are areas that you must study, and these are directly from your E2 syllabus. Another common topic that comes up is financial and non-financial performance indicators. So how do I judge the performance of a certain employee, certain management from the financial perspective? Use gross profit margin, net profit margin. From a non-financial perspective, how do you judge the same? Directly part of your E2 syllabus and pretty much exam favorite questions which do come up. So you must study the topics like conflict management, balance scorecard, performance measures. You must study them. You must go through them. These are important areas that are often asked in the exam. Next topic we discuss is managing the pricing dilemma. Now earlier we dealt with costing. Never mix costing and pricing. Both are two very different elements, two very different things. So when we think about pricing, Pricing is how you price your product so the customer is induced to buy the same. What type of pricing questions can come up? So they can mention that we are entering a new market and introducing a new product. What pricing strategy can we follow? So should we stick to our current pricing method, which you'll know from the pre-scene analysis, or you need to suggest another different pricing method? Over here, market-based pricing strategies have to be studied. So your premium pricing, market skimming, these are strategies explained in P2 which you must be clear about. Secondly, questions relating to transfer pricing are very common in the MCS exam. So the concept of transfer pricing is very, very important. They can ask you the advantages and disadvantages of market-based or cost-based transfer prices. You must know the advantages and the disadvantages of each transfer price very, very clearly. Let's say you have a market-based transfer pricing system. Couple advantages, couple disadvantages. Cost-based transfer pricing system. Couple advantages, couple disadvantages, and this is clearly stated out in your transfer pricing chapter under the P2 syllabus. So pricing falls under your core area A, but is a very important perspective for us to keep in mind. Important topic number 9 is manufacturing related issues which coincide with the digital aspects. So again, bringing the digital aspects into the picture here, but dealing with manufacturing related issues. Now, manufacturing related issues are part of your core areas A and E. What type of questions come up here? So manufacturing, when that comes to my mind, I'm thinking, what better modern manufacturing systems can my business use? So if it's a manufacturing organization, you need to know JIT, TQM, what these methods are, how they can be implemented. These are modern manufacturing techniques. They can tell you that from tomorrow or 6 months forward, we are looking to implement JIT and TQM in our production process. How will we go about doing the same? Please explain the concepts. You may need to be you need to be able to explain these concepts in your own words. That is why this important topic list gives you an area to propel from, gives you a mindset that you can develop when revising. So just imagine your preparedness when you go to the exam. Let's say you revise these topics, you know the pre-scene very well, and as a student you've practiced mock questions with me. Just imagine the level of preparedness and confidence you will have. That is what we are trying to drive with this entire explanation that we have created. Secondly, they can ask you about continuous improvement in today's modern world. So how can you stay ahead of your competition using data? So again, the big data perspective built in over here. Because we are dealing with manufacturing related issues, machine goodwill impairment, that also comes into the picture. Quality related issues and quality costs, an important topic. And because we speak about manufacturing, there are certain key performance indicators which we must know or can come up as an exam question in the manufacturing perspective, or in the normal business management perspective. You must still know what KPIs are, key performance indicators, and you must be able to suggest key performance indicators. All of this is in your P2 syllabus. So if you've studied quality costs, key performance indicator, meaning and illustrations, JIT, TQM, IAS 36, which is impairment, you've covered this particular segment, and your questions, if they come from core area A and E in under this umbrella, you will be ready to answer. Topic number 10 that I always speak about is business oriented questions, which means many a times there are core areas which are overlapping with one another. You cannot put a certain topic under the, you can't say it's the P2 syllabus, it's the E2 syllabus, it's the F2 syllabus. It's overlapping at times. And that is why in this segment, we'll be discussing the overlapping problems or important areas which are highlighted in your blueprints, but they overlap between the syllabus areas, and that is why we put them all together. So what type of questions come up here? You have ethics related questions. They can mention unethical behavior. You must be able to identify it. So your CIMA code of ethics becomes very important to study. Secondly, tabular analysis is very common. They can just give you a table, ask you to analyze the numbers in that table. Ratio analysis, they can give you the ratios of two companies, ask you to analyze which company is better. Very common. These are things which you can only develop with writing practice. You can't study ratio analysis. You must be able to write, explain, and if you practice that, you'll be ready in the exam. Third thing, very important, is stakeholders. So what are the stakeholders? What are key stakeholders, and how do you manage stakeholders? Very important. Again, tabular analysis in any form is very common. A common MCS question is relating to project management tools and techniques. How can you manage a project better? What are the tools you can use? Part of your P2 syllabus. So we must study the pre-scene very well. You need to know your company in and out to answer these business oriented questions. This is very important. So a vital skill to answer business oriented questions like this is knowing the pre-scene. So your stakeholder management, part of your P2 syllabus, project management, part of your E2 syllabus, tabular analysis, ratio analysis, part of your F2 syllabus. So as I said, these areas are overlapping, but these are topics that often come up in the exam. The final topic in this series is funding. Now funding is part of your core area A. It's the first core area, the first blueprint. Nothing like this is the most important topic or core area A is the most important blueprint. Nothing like that. All 11 topics and all types of questions that we have discussed are ones that often come up, and that is why we point them out to you. So in the funding zone, what I need to think about and what I need to know first and foremost is what my current business position is. So if you've gone through the pre-scene analysis with us, we give you a complete breakdown of where the business is at, the growth prospects of the business, the current financial position of the business. Because then knowing that, you will be able to answer funding related questions. Because often they ask you, should we go for debt? Should we go for equity? We are expanding into a new country, starting a new factory. We need funds. Should we go with debt? Should we go with equity? You'll only be able to answer this question if you know what your current gearing ratio is, what your current equity ratio is. If the gearing is too low, you suggest gearing. If equity is too low, you suggest raising new equity. But you can only do that if you have F2 knowledge and you know the pre-scene well. So both of these need to combine, but it is a common exam scenario. They can also ask you to suggest long-term finance options, short-term finance options. You should be able to suggest the same. They can ask you, what does weighted average cost of capital means? Not everybody at the board of directors level understands this. So break down WACC, show what WACC means. You should be able to do that, and all of this is in your F2 syllabus at the start, the first couple chapters. Careful analysis of the same is very important over here because funding is often asked in the exam as a subtask. So now we've finally come to the end of this video. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. I hope you found the entire experience to be a little bit helpful and give you confidence to prepare towards this exam. I would now request you to visit our website and our MCS page because we have a whole lot of important information that is available there. So we would not want you to miss it. The MCS page, I'll leave the description in the link below. And I will leave the link to our free mini course as well, which we have created in the description below. I'm sure that is something that you will find helpful. Thank you for being here. Good luck with your exam.